What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's another episode of A Follows Authority with Nate Holloway. Guys, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Guys, we got a great interview for you. For those of you who this is your first time watching, A Follows Authority is a part of Kingdom Relationships, and it's our podcast where we are here to change the narrative on fatherhood, to bring fathers back into the lives of their children and to bring them back into the lives of their family. And guys, we have a great interview tonight where I bring fathers on, different fathers from all walks of life, young fathers, older fathers. I call them seasons, veterans, to come in and give you advice and input that we may try to impact the father somewhere out there that's watching. So guys, while you're watching, just let us know if you have any questions. Just comment, let us know what your questions are, and we're going to do our best to answer the questions for you. Tonight, I got my friend and my big brother. He's been a friend. We've been friends for years. We actually just reconnected after so many years. Ken Gordon, he's a pastor. He's a best-selling author. He's a radio host. And most of all, he's a father. So we are going to talk all things fatherhood with Ken Gordon tonight. Let's get at it. Ken, hey man, how you doing?
Hey bro, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm telling everybody, it's been some years, man, and we reconnected. I remember when we first met, and I remember when I went to college. You gave me some real good advice about college, about fraternities, and all that stuff, man.
Did you follow it though?
See, what had happened was,
there you go.
I think I followed some of it.
You know, if you followed any of it, then you're ahead of the game. You know, because our children tend not to follow any of it, right? So.
Yeah, I think maybe a couple things I followed, but you know, it later on in life, you know, some of it started coming back as I became an adult. But man, I'm so glad to have you on tonight. I'm glad you said you would come on and talk to us. So tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah. So first of all, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. As you said, you and I go way, way, way back to young ministry.
Yes.
When there was no gray here at all.
Right.
But you know what is encouraging to me is to see that these many years later that you're still walking with Christ, and that's such a beautiful thing. So that is a great thing. I am here in Birmingham, Alabama. I pastor a church here called the House of Light Church. My wife and I founded the church a few years ago. She is right at my side as we minister. And God is just doing some amazing things in ministry with people and with people's hearts. And that's a beautiful thing. My wife and I had a radio show here in the Birmingham area called Commitments. That was about relationships. And it really started off actually focused on divorce. But it kind of evolved from that into just overall relationships. And so the Lord spoke to me and said, you know, we had been on the air for a couple of years, and he said, I have a new assignment for you. And so we ended the radio show and the radio station, and a lot of people were pretty upset because we were really blessing a lot of people, or God was blessing a lot of people through us. And when we ended it, he said, I have some books I want you to write. Now, I had already written one book, and the first book that I wrote, which was published in 2016, was Divorced But Still Dad: The Faith Principles of Fatherhood for Divorced Men. And that book was really about how do I go through divorce and still honor God? How do I go through divorce and still honor my children? And so coming out of, so I had that book out there, and then coming out of that, the Lord had me write a book called The Love of a Father: Faith Principles of the Power of a Father's Love. And the whole idea behind that book is to your point, to change the narrative about fathers, who we are and how we love, and to begin to build the men up versus tearing them down. And so, we wrote that book, and then, there was another book that we wrote. What I'm really excited about, though, is the book that comes out next month. I have a book that comes out next month, and it's the first book in a 12-book children's series. And it's all about fathers and their engagement with their children. And now I must say, not their presence with their children, but their engagement. because we have got to get away from this thing about fathers being in the house. It doesn't matter if you're in the house. Are you engaged with your children?
Yes.
And so this book and this entire series is all about encouraging men to be engaged with their children, showing them how it looks and modeling for them some of what that is. And if I can just say one more thing about that, when I really put this children's series together, there were 5 threads that I really, really wanted to go through every single one of those 12 books. The first thread that I really wanted to go through was about, a father's engagement with his children, not just being present, but actually being engaged. The second thing is I wanted these books to show a father empowering his daughter to greatness. It's a father's responsibility to help build the self-esteem of his daughter and to help set the bar so that she knows, oh no, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not accepting
Right.
that. My daddy taught me I'm a queen. I don't know. I don't deal with that. You don't talk to me that way. The next thing was of fathers, modeling what it means to be a man for his sons. And that's a very important thing as men, as fathers. We have a responsibility to show our sons what that looks like. In my first book, I talked about a father being, or a man being a protector, provider, and a priest. We got to show that. The fourth thing is there has to be in this book and all of them, there's a thread of a father introducing his family, leading his family to Christ, not sending them, but leading them to Christ.
Leading.
And then the final thing of all of this is the father and his positive treatment of the mother of his children, whether you're married or not married.
Right.
You must treat the mother of your children, the woman who gave you this prize, the woman who gave you your legacy. You must treat her with respect. You must honor her. And so those 5 threads are present in every single one of the books. So the first book in this series is called Pancake Dad, and it releases next month. So that's what I've been up to.
Okay. Keep us posted. Keep us posted.
All right.
We can have you back. I'll have you back on here, and we'll talk about that book. But you said something that I was talking to some dads before, and one of them brought up about a statistic that says 90% of children, it was either 90 or 85 or 90% of children, that when they go to church, when the father takes them to church and the father's engaged in church with them, they stay with Christ.
Wow. That's an amazing statistic, and I believe it.
I could be a little wrong on the numbers, but it was high. It was the 80, 85, and 90 of those families that the father takes the family to church, that the father leads them to church. They stay with Christ because of that example of their father. And now that's big key. Speaking of examples of father, tell us about your life growing up with your dad.
Yeah, so I was not a statistic. I grew up with a father in the house. My dad, who is still living, my parents have been married 56 years, and he was an amazing role model to me. And he modeled what it meant to be a man from the standpoint of being a protector and a provider. I watched my dad work multiple jobs to ensure that we had everything that we took. But at the same time, while working multiple jobs, always having the time for us, always having the time to go to our band concerts, always having time to go through our football games or whatever, always having time to help us with homework. He would cook and clean in the house. On Saturday mornings, a lot of mornings he would make breakfast. He would wash clothes. He would iron clothes. He would fold clothes. So I grew up seeing a strong Black man in the household that nothing was beneath him. And one that looked at his children as the most important thing. And he used to say all the time to us that your mother may get rid of me, but I will never walk out on this family, because from the time that I got married and the time that my children were born, that for me was a lifetime commitment. And so that's how I grew up. That's what I grew up knowing. And so it really encouraged me, and it inspired me to be that kind of a father. to my children. And I have two biological children. My wife and I, we have a blended family, so we have four children total. But growing up with my father, he did a great job of modeling that. My father is a preacher. And so, he took us to church, and in the church where I was raised, that meant 6 nights a week.
Don't I know that?
That meant on Sunday we are at church at 9:00 and we're there till 3. We go get something to eat and we're back there at 6. But that was what that was. There you go, exactly. So a little something about that. And so my dad was that guy that did whatever he needed to do for his family. He was that guy that made a commitment early to family, and he kept it. And even to this day, when I talk to my dad and when he talks about it, the most important thing to my father is, I just hope I was a good dad to you. In my most recent book, The Love of a Father, I wrote an entire chapter called A Salute to My Dad, where I just really talked about the impact he made on me as a man and the impact he made on me as a father, because you don't forget it. I know a lot of guys who weren't raised with a dad in their household. And even if you weren't raised with a dad in your household, that's no excuse for you not to be a great dad. But for those of us who were raised with a dad in our household, in some cases that was a good thing. In some cases it was a bad thing. But the one thing I've always learned is you can learn from every situation in your life, a bad one or a good one. And it's a matter of how you apply that education that matters. So my dad was just an amazing role model and just an amazing man to me as a dad and as a father and as a man.
That's good. That's good. I know I was one of those who didn't have a father. I didn't know my father. But the thing God, and this is what I love about God, he'll bless you with what you need.
Yeah.
He blessed me with a father figure for every season of my life.
Wow.
That I needed. When I needed a father figure, I was blessed with a father figure. And so I was able to learn things, even though it wasn't in the house. And it's not the same as the dad being in the house, but as I got older, I started using that. Well, my dad wasn't there, so I don't know what it means to do this. So I don't know what it means to do that, but there was no excuse. I had to learn, because when my son was born, I had to step up quick.
Exactly.
I was like, and I had to pray. I said, Lord, I need you to teach me how to raise my son.
Yeah,
because I don't know what it feels like to have a father in the house.
Right.
I know it feels like have father figures where I can go to their house,
right,
or I can go with them. I can go to lunch with them, but to come home overnight in the house, I don't know what it feels like or what a father's supposed to do.
Right.
In the house at night when the child's up crying, or when my son falls or he does something and says I can't do it. What it means to be at the dinner table and say, let's talk about school today. Let's talk about how you did this. And so I had to learn that through trial and error. That was God.
Yeah.
And so now I had things mentors told me, but that was God. So things I'm doing in the home with my son, I'm learning from advice I've gotten from mentors, but it's also God showing me what to do with my son, how to speak to him when my son has those moments of doubt, what to say to him.
Right.
And things that we just recently had a moment where he's a perfectionist, and he was drawing a picture of SpongeBob.
Okay.
And he couldn't get SpongeBob's eyes just like the picture. And he started crying. I'm like, buddy, it's okay. So it doesn't have to be perfect. But Daddy, I want it to be perfect. And then I had to stop. And then I had to start confessing over him, because it was just like something that he was dealing with, where he was crying because he felt that he couldn't do something because it wasn't perfect.
Right.
So I had to pray over him. I took a moment, I prayed over him, and that was God.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that in the house. So I had to say, okay. I started talking to him. When I realized that the talking wasn't really working, I said, okay, Father, in the name of Jesus, and
there you go.
I confessed over him. I decreed this, but I know he's still he doesn't like to fail. He doesn't like to lose. He wants everything to be perfect. But I'm going through the Lord. Now I have to seek God to show me as his father how to raise him and how to tackle that, because that could be something that God wants to use in him
Right.
down the road. So it's not my job as a father to take it out of him,
Exactly.
but to
Exactly.
cultivate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because if he's a perfectionist, what if that's what God wants to use with him?
Right.
So I gotta learn how to cultivate that
Right.
as a father.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I'm working on. That's why when you said fathers being engaged and fathers being present is key, especially those dads out there. Dads, if you're listening or watching this, and you didn't have your father, that doesn't have to hold you back.
No.
Doesn't have to hold you back from being a good father. Doesn't have to hold you back from being a good husband. Doesn't have to hold you back from being present with your children, because God will always give you what you need and show you what to do.
But Pastor Nate, I'll tell you this: one of the things that I have seen in life is some of the greatest fathers I know were men that were not raised by a father, and the reason for that is because their upbringing informed who they did not want to be.
Yes,
and it informed what they needed to be for their children. In the in the book, The Love of a Father, that I wrote, at the end of the book, I had 25 fathers that I gave a questionnaire and asked them a variety of questions about their children and about being a father. And I had them fill it out, and then I put them. All the different answers are in the back of the book. And it just was amazing to me how some of those men that I consider to be amazing fathers, I didn't even know some of them didn't grow up with a father. I didn't even know some of them, did not have a father in the house. And as a matter of fact, there was one who's a bishop, who was my bishop in New Jersey. I did not know that he actually never met his father, and he was raised by someone who adopted him, who was in their 60s or 70s when they actually adopted him as a very small child.
Wow.
And I would have never known that, because this man is just an amazing father, and he just has amazing parental skills, and the way that he deals with not only his family, but as a bishop, with all of the preachers and the pastors that are in his jurisdiction. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is a situation where someone didn't use it as an excuse.
Right.
They used it as an activator. And that to me is important.
Yeah, and I had to learn that because coming up, I just used why he didn't want me and this and that. Last words I heard from my father, I reached out to him as an adult on Facebook. Last thing he said to me was, "Leave him alone." And I was like, and that hurt. But then I said, my wife and I were talking one day, and I said, I can't let this hold me back from being the father to my son that he needs.
Yeah.
So if I had to play the victim,
right,
then I would have been not been a great father to my son.
Right.
My son would have been neglected. He would have been he wouldn't have gotten what he needed from me if I had to play the victim. But what I did was I took what, like you said, what I didn't want to be and became what I did not want to be.
That's exactly
I became what I wanted to be, but not what I didn't want to be, if I said that right.
Right.
But I became a father because I didn't want to be like mine. I never wanted my son to not know me. I never wanted, I use my son as a guide, because I tell people, I say, before I step outside of my marriage, I would think about my son, because I can't dare to see the look on his face when he don't see me come through that door every day.
Right.
And I think we think about that, think about our children and our families before we make decisions, that will help guide us in some of the decisions we make.
I agree. Yeah.
But let me ask, what does fatherhood mean to you?
Well, and I'll go back to something I said a little bit ago. I look at really the biblical example of fatherhood. Fatherhood means unconditional love. Fatherhood means the ability to provide. And when I think about providing for someone, I'm not just talking about food on the table. I'm also talking about emotional and psychological support. I'm talking about being able to say to them, you don't have to be a perfectionist. SpongeBob's eyes are okay. That kind of emotional support, letting your child know that flaws are not fatal, right?
Right.
I mean, that to me is fatherhood. Fatherhood means engagement. It means being there. And I tell you another thing that fatherhood means for me, and I had to learn this over time, is fatherhood means that we as fathers are not perfect. You
Mm.
know, you talk about, your son being perfect and wanting the eyes to be perfect or whatever. The truth of the matter is a lot of people believe that parents have to be perfect, that fathers have to be perfect. None of us are perfect.
Right.
None of us walk in a way that is perfect. But the best thing that we can hope is that our children understand and we communicate to them that not being perfect does not invalidate who you are as a person. And so fatherhood for me means having warts. I tell people all the time, I did not write the books that I wrote because I'm perfect. I didn't write the books that I wrote because I have all the answers. I wrote them because I'm imperfect. I've made a bunch of mistakes. I've tripped and fallen.
Mhm.
I have elbows and knees that are all scraped up. And because of that imperfection, it gives me the right to write a book to say, hey, let me tell you a few things you shouldn't do.
Right.
And so for me, fatherhood means those things. It means being a protector. And that means not just protecting from things external, it means sometimes protecting from
Yes.
me, the daddy, from my moods, from my mood swings, from my bad days,
Mhm.
from my impatience, from whatever. Sometimes it means protecting your family and your children from you. The
Yeah.
Bible tells us not to provoke our children, right? I think a lot of men miss that scripture. There are sometimes as a dad, you just need to shut it down and shut up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to watch what you say. It's not necessarily that you said anything, is how you said it. And I'll give you a really good example. My daughter, who is 21, was in college and she came home to visit. And she was on her way to go out somewhere and she came downstairs. And what she had on, um, in my mind, was very inappropriate. Now, of course, I'm in my 50s. And what's inappropriate to me in my 50s as is very different than what they say now. But I looked up from where I was sitting in the family room. I looked up from reading something, and I said, that makes you look like a tramp. Didn't even think twice about it. I
Mhm.
just made an observation based on my world and kind of my, in my sphere.
Yeah.
If I would have looked a little longer, I would have seen my daughter's whole countenance change. I would have seen everything drop with her. I hurt her so badly. I
Mm.
should have protected my daughter from me, from my opinions, from my thoughts. I should have figured out a way to communicate what I was saying, but first kind of filter it through a lens of today, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, I learned the hard way about fathers having to protect their children from them. Sometimes as a dad, sometimes you just shouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes as a dad, you need to hold your tongue. You need to wait. Sometimes it's about, all things are lawful but not expedient. Sometimes you need to wait. Sometimes you need to find a different way to say it. So when you say, what does fatherhood mean to me? Fatherhood is multifaceted, but it starts with love, unconditional love, agape, and
Mhm.
it filters down into being a protector, protecting from outside, but also from inside, with being a provider, providing not just stuff, but also providing that mental and that emotional support that they need. And then it's about being a priest, taking your family to church, not by sending them there, but by showing them the example in how you walk, your relationship with Christ. Mama shouldn't be the only one walking around the house singing hymns. Daddy needs to sing some too.
Yeah, and to that point, man, I like how you said we have to protect them from us sometimes because we can say some things quickly
Yes.
before we think about, like you said before you thought about it. There are times where I've disciplined Caleb, and
Mm,
not a lot, but I didn't think about like maybe what I had to learn that, okay, what was going through his mind?
right.
What was he thinking when he said that? Or what was
Right.
he thinking? Because it was one night he was upstairs and Keisha asked him, did he want a spanking? He said
Mm,
yes. He was playing, but he didn't realize that you don't play like that
right.
with
Right.
mommy and daddy. And I was like, what?
Right. Right.
And then, you know, I went and I tapped him. He was like, that didn't hurt. I'm like, oh, snap. I just saw like red. I saw,
Absolutely.
but in my mind, I saw him in the future, like,
Mm.
you know, him disrespecting somebody else, or
Mhm.
I saw that as being disrespectful.
Mhm.
And so when and knowing and my son, what I've learned about Caleb is that if Caleb is sincere,
Mhm.
he'll come to you later and be like, "Well, Daddy, I didn't mean it like
Mhm.
that." You know, if he don't come, then he know what he was doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he went to my wife the next day and said, "Mommy, I was just playing. I didn't mean that."
Mm.
And I thought about, you know, maybe at that time, maybe I should have calmed first,
Mhm.
talk to him to find out, yo, you don't do that, buddy.
Right. Right.
We don't do that. And so, and like I said, we do have to protect from us, especially from our words, because the words
Our
of a
words,
father,
absolutely.
yeah, the words of a father go into our children. And I can't get on that because we're gonna talk about that too. So I don't want to get too much.
All right.
So, what's the best part of being a father?
You know, I tell people all the time that the reason I wanted to be a father is for me the best reason, the best part of being a father, and that is that unconditional love from your children. There is nothing. One of the questions I asked in the survey that I gave, the questionnaire that I gave to all the men for the book, is tell me how you feel when you hear your child call you daddy.
Man, that feeling, man.
Whew. There is just something about your child
Yes,
calling you daddy, right?
get you teared up every
It,
time.
it, it does, and that the responses a lot of these men wrote, the 20 or so different men that responded, it had kind of a similar thread to it. It's just this acknowledgement that you are something special to them,
Yes.
and that words matter, and there's kind of this bigness about who you are in their lives, and you don't want to mess that up, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have this tremendous responsibility for another person and shaping their life, and you know, God entrusting them to you, and you don't want to mess that up. And so for me, you know, the greatest part about being a dad is just having these you know, these amazing creatures, God's amazing creatures that I'm entrusted with, that have this unconditional love. Because here's what I know: you can be the worst father in the world, and I mean the literal worst father in the world, that does things that no father should ever do to a child. But in every single child's heart and in their mind, they want redemption for you. Every single child wants their parent to do better. Every single child wants to
Yeah.
forgive their parent and know that that was the last time, and know that they're not going to say it anymore, and know that they're going to get help, or know that whatever. Why? Because children have this capacity for unconditional love that allows them to always hope for the best. And
Yeah.
that is an amazing feeling, knowing they're actually pulling for me. They actually want me to do better. I've let them down. I have done things that have disappointed them. But if there's anyone who is always saying, "But I want you to do better," that believes in redemption, it's your children. And that's a beautiful part about being a father.
Yeah, I want to say something, but man, my mom's watching. She said hello.
I saw that pop up, and I was right in the middle of that, and I was like, "Hey, Joanne! Hey, Miss Calvin!"
Ah, she said
That's my old
hello.
friend right there.
Yeah.
That's my
But
friend.
yeah.
Forgive me. That's my friend. I shouldn't say. I
Oh,
mean, we go back a long ways, I should say.
yeah, yeah. Oh no, you know,
She's not old.
my mom love her some Ken Gordon, boy.
Absolutely.
You her buddy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, and because that it's like for me,
Mhm.
every day when I come home, it's like I get emotional because I
Yeah.
know when I open that door, I'm gonna hear
Yeah.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Unless he's upstairs on his Nintendo Switch or his iPad, and he
Yeah.
don't hear that I
Right.
came in. When I walk up the stairs, I'll stand there for a little bit. I'll be like, "Hey, buddy, Daddy." And like you heard when we talked earlier, you know,
I
and
know.
it's like, Daddy, can we play? Daddy, 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 and
That
I
is a
love
great
it. You
feeling.
know, sometimes I could be so tired,
Yeah.
but I get energy because he is just Daddy,
Yeah.
Daddy, 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 can we do this? And Daddy, Daddy, I learned this. And Daddy, and Daddy, and Daddy, can you do this for me? Daddy, you be Mario, I be Luigi. But
Right.
it's like a feeling, man. It's like when I come through the door, we got this thing that if he comes to the door, to the garage door, when I come inside, and he says, "Who is it?" If I just say "Daddy," you don't open that door. We have a code word.
Okay.
That I say the code word when it follows Daddy, then he knows it's me.
All
and
right.
I love it because he just opened the door. He'd be so excited. My wife had a video one day when I pulled the garage open. He in the garage, Daddy.
Isn't that the best feeling in the world?
It is, man.
I mean, there is nothing like that feeling.
Nothing like, and I think about it. I can't imagine leaving that. I can't imagine not being with him. I can't imagine. I will make whatever needs to work in my marriage to make sure that we stay together.
Yeah.
For him. And so, and that's what, even though fathers are not, if you're not with your child's mother, still make it where you're with that child. Even to this day, Ken, I yearn to just meet my biological father.
Yeah.
And just have a conversation. I don't even want to know why you left.
Right.
I don't want to know. That's 47 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I can't change what happened then. I just want a conversation to see the other part of me, to see what that characteristics that I got that you got.
Right.
The love for music, because he's a musician, the love for music that you have, that I have. And just a comment. I don't need to know why.
Yeah.
And as a grown man, as a 47-year-old man, I still yearn for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are times where I'm thinking about doing something and I just want to hear a father's. And I wish that I had my father to say, son, do this.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's that redemption I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, and like I said, many kids want that for their fathers, no matter what they did, whether they left.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, you got me, man. You got me over here. So we talked about this. We touched on this a little bit. This next question: how important are a father's words to his children?
Yeah, and I can't even express how important a father's words are to his children. They carry more weight than literally anything, and I truly believe this, than anything that the father could ever do, and anything that anyone else will ever do. I have seen fathers literally crush the spirits in their children by their careless words. I have seen fathers literally create Superman by their words. A father's words mean everything. And here's the thing: for a lot of men, we don't understand the power of our own words. We don't attach kind of an emotional conduit to our words and our heart, or our words and our mind, and we say things oftentimes carelessly. And that's why, for a lot of men, that's why we have a lot of problems with our wives, because we are too careless with our words. And so women, they weigh their words. The words are important to them, and they understand how they build up and how they tear down. For women, they tend to be very intentional with their words. Men tend to be very random with our words. And I don't mean to paint with a broad brush, but I'm kind of broad brush painting. I know that there may be a guy sitting out there going, well, I'm careful with mine. Great. But everybody is not.
All right. It's a learning thing, though, because we have to learn to do that as a man.
You must learn to do that. And you learn to do that, I believe, by being engaged in relationships. You learn to do that by being observant. Here's the thing that I know. What I know is that my children taught me how they wanted to be parented. And I have a Marine Corps background, and I have a very strict, structured background. And I was like, my children would do what I say, how I say, when I say jump, they will say ha hi. When I get up in the morning, they'll be standing at their beds at attention. In my mind, that's what I thought. That's what I felt. My children, though, and the thing that I want all dads to understand is that God didn't give you children so that they could be just like you. He gave you children so that they could fulfill God's purpose for them.
Yeah.
And so too many times we get trapped in trying to make our children us, or a mini version of us, or live vicariously through our children. But what often happens is we forget that they have their own emotions, their own thoughts, their own dreams. And our job is not to stamp that out until we can install ours. Our job is to cultivate that, like you said a little bit earlier. And so when I learned that words really, really matter with my children, when I learned not to be so careless with my words, when I let my children help me understand the power of words through being observant. All you have to do is just be observant and watch your children. Watch their mother, watch your wife. You will know immediately when something you have said, it was said in the wrong way, or in the wrong spirit, or in the wrong tone. Sometimes you can say the right thing in the wrong tone. Sometimes it's not just words that matter, it's the tone that matters.
Yeah.
And so as men, we must learn to be much more observant. We must learn to be much more attentive to how our words and how our body language and our nonverbal words, how that impacts people as well. I cannot stress enough how important words, verbal and nonverbal, are in the development of your children, in the development of your relationship, and in your children's view of their mother. A father can kill the mother's influence with the children, or the mother's standing with the children, and how they see him talk to her, how they see him deal with her. They must see him treasure her. They must see him honor her. So those words matter as well. Look, I could talk for a long time about all the different ways that words matter in a father's relationship with his children. But to your point, they absolutely matter so much.
Yeah. And you got to, like you said, you have to know your child. You have to know how to talk to them. Like,
yes.
And I'm learning, and to a point earlier, as fathers, you said something about fathers not being perfect, because we're always learning.
Yeah.
I think fatherhood is an ongoing class.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I believe, because, I'm only 5 years in, 6 years in next month. But I'm learning my son, like I said, by watching him, observe how he reacts when I say certain things. My son loves to be affirmed.
Okay.
When he does something, he wants to know he did a good job. And I started that. My wife and I do that. We make sure we tell him we're proud of him. I tell him all the time. I speak into his life all the time. I tell him, we don't use the word "you can't" around him. I try to frame how to say, well, son, you can't do something. I may say, let's figure out how you can do it, or that's not appropriate for you to do right now. I try to use the word "can't" with him. And I had to watch him to learn that, he can be stubborn, but how do I talk to that stubbornness?
Right.
He's going to question, because my son is analytical. He wants to know why something is wrong. To do, and not just because I said so.
Right.
Why are you saying?
Why are you saying so?
Can't do that. Yeah, so I can't say because I said so. After, well, son, because this is wrong. Because my wife is very analytical.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to explain it to him what it is that you're saying he can't do, and I had to learn that.
Yeah.
I had to learn that as a father. I had to learn that. So now I know that I need to choose my words wisely with him, to talk to him, to speak into him. And I know that I can tear him down if I say the wrong thing. I could hurt him if I say the wrong thing. And I never want to tear him down. I want to continuously build him up. That's why after he gets disciplined, I build him up.
Right.
This is why daddy had to discipline you. Because you can't do this, because you're greater than that. You're Holloway. We don't do that. You're great. So you can't do that, because it's going to mess with your greatness. So those things, and those words, I can see my words impacting.
Pastor Nate, let me bring something. You said something that made me think about something else as well. I'm sure you've heard of the 5 love languages.
Yes.
By Gary Chapman. What I did not know is that there's actually a 5 love languages for children. And what I did was I gave my children that test. I had them take the test of the 5 love languages because I felt like it was incredibly important that I learn their love language, what validates them. And not just make an assumption that I think I know what it is, but I actually had both of my children take the 5 love languages for I think it's for teenagers. There's one for children. And when I got the results back, I was like, okay, now I can talk to them in their love language. Because to your point, you said that, your son likes to be affirmed. There are different languages that everyone has. And I think it's worth it to try to understand, how does my child want me to talk to them?
Yeah.
And that was a tool that I used that really helped me get my arms around that. Because to your wife's point that she just popped up on the screen a second ago, it's important that whatever you do, you don't break their spirit. My wife, Leslie, says all the time that her youngest son, and my bonus son is what I call him. He has this real strong spirit. And what she did not want to do is she wanted to kind of put a difference between what is disrespect versus what is just him having this strong spirit that needed to be cultivated because he would need it and use it in his lifetime. So don't break his spirit.
Right.
Just learn to help him manage it, and don't take everything so personal. Sometimes our children say things to us and they're not being disrespectful, but we take it personal. We're like, what you say? Don't take it personal. Just learn to corral, learn to help them manage. As she says, and I love this, she says, I teach my sons how to manage their superpowers. And I'm like, I love that, right? I love that.
Yeah, and so to the point, like you said, my wife did that night that Caleb was like, when I said I felt he was disrespectful. My wife was like, I was tore up. I came down, I was mad, I was hot, I was hurt. I felt like I failed as a father. My wife came downstairs. Why you make this all about you? I'm like, what? Why you make this all about me?
Right.
But she was like, she said, I was like, oh, okay, that's what we gonna do. All right, she didn't take it personal. I took it personal.
Yeah,
but she was like, oh, okay,
right.
What we gonna do? And then so what she was expecting me as her husband and as his father was for us to sit down together and talk about how we were going to handle it next.
Right.
But me, I took it personally.
Right.
And got all emotional and went downstairs, and I was mad. And I sat downstairs. I even went to bed because I pray over him at night before he goes to sleep. I pray with him. I went to bed. I was like, I ain't going to go. I'm mad. And then Holy Spirit got to me. It was like, what are you supposed to do for your son tonight?
Get up. That's right.
I was like, all right. So I got up, went in there, prayed with him, prayed over him, and then I went back to bed. But like you said, I took it personal. I never thought about that. And that's good. You said I never thought about that. Don't take it personal and get emotional about it because we're quick to do that.
Yeah.
And I know, guys, we're not saying we don't discipline our children.
Right.
We're not saying that, but there's an appropriate time. Back in the day, my mom watching. I'm gonna put it on blast right now. Back in the day, Joanne you ain't have time to explain yourself because a shoe was coming past your head. Joanne from old school. Mom, I love you. But old school, you went outside, you got your switch, you ain't have time to cultivate your attitude, anything like that. And so, but to her point, her defense, that's what she knew.
Right.
That's what she saw coming. That's what she knew. But my mom was a great mom, guys. My mom raised 5 of us by herself. Great mom. I love her. Shout out to my mom tonight. I gotta take this moment, guys. My mom is watching. Mom, I love you. Shout out to my mom. Kid know my mom. She raised 5 of us by herself. And
she's an amazing mother, amazing woman.
She's an amazing woman. But and that was 5 different personalities she got, and trust me.
Yeah,
we got some personalities between me and my brothers and sisters. But so we have to, like I said, to our point, we have to learn our children. Love you, Mom.
Pastor Nate, let me just say one real quick thing. There are a lot of studies out there that show that the most important thing to a woman is security, right? The
Yep.
most important thing to a man is respect. As
Hmm.
men, we have to be careful not to allow that to bleed over into our relationships and it to control the relationships either with our children or with their mother or our wife. And we have to learn that, as I said, you can't take it personal. Sometimes it's not a matter of you being disrespected, and we have to kind of get off of that. And that's something that I really, really, really learned with my son. It is that sometimes you are so concerned about being disrespected that you're actually disrespecting yourself as a father. I'll leave it there. But I think as men, we need to kind of stop taking so much so personal. Think everybody's trying to disrespect us, and just learn to really look past ourselves, like your wife Keisha said, Lakeisha. I don't know her well enough to call her Keisha, so
You
she's
good.
like, wow, my friends call me Keisha, but anyway, but she's my little sister, whether she knows it or not. But we have to learn that it's not all about us and stop making it about us. And
Yeah.
so I love that advice that she gave you.
And you said about the respect thing, and it's we have to respect our children as well.
Yes,
No,
yes, very
we
true.
have to show them respect too. And I talk to my son with respect. And
Mhm,
I teach him. When you talking to me, you talk to me with confidence. You look
mhm,
another man in the eye when you talk to him. You look at me in the eye. And you talk to
mhm.
me with confidence, and I
Yep,
respect him as a young man.
right,
And
exactly.
I show him that respect, so he'll get me respect because he can't say that my daddy treated me this way. He will always be able to say that my daddy respects me and my dad loves me. So you
All
can call
right.
her Keisha.
Keisha, I will call you Keisha. Thank you.
So what's an important piece? Let me just go. What's the best piece of advice you received from your dad?
The best piece of advice I received from my dad really has to do with something that you said a little bit earlier, and that is that your role as a man is to be here for your children. Even if you have disagreements with their mother, even if you have issues going on, your thing is to be here for your children. And my father made a commitment that no matter what, he would be there. Now, let me be really clear about something, because this is an area that people get messed up on. Sometimes things don't work in the marriage, and sometimes divorce does occur. But that does not mean you can't be there for your children.
Right.
And so I want to be really careful, because that was one of the things, because I divorced my children's mother. And to your point, it was a very difficult decision, and it was a very difficult thing to do. But the one thing that both my parents told me when that happened is that has nothing to do with whether or not you're there for your children. Just because you're not in that house, it doesn't mean that you can't be there for your children. So the greatest advice that my father ever gave me was to always be there for your children, no matter what. And so I try very hard to live that on a day-to-day basis. My children are both adults. My two biological children and my two bonus children, they're all adults. So I have four adulting children. And my goal for all of them is, just because we don't live together doesn't mean I can't be there for you. And so
Right.
as a father, I always want to be there. And again, not just a physical presence, but emotional support, engaged, caring about where they are in life, caring about what they have going on. And as tried as it seems for my dad to say be there, there's just a lot of men who aren't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of men who are there physically, but they're not there mentally. Bobby Womack had a song back in the day, your body, your body's here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town.
Right.
And that's the way a lot of men are with their children, right? In my book, I wrote in my book, Love of a Father, that when my children were growing up, I had a mistress. And my mistress would get me up early in the morning and return me home late at night. My mistress would cause me to fly all over the world. My mistress would cause me to be on my computer all the time. My mistress was my job.
Mhm.
And I devoted more time to my job. Even when I was home in the house, I was with my mistress, because I was on the computer. I was on my phone. I was taking phone calls. I was writing reports. I was doing all of that. And I had to learn from, from what my dad said to me is no, be there for your children. Be there, not just physically, but mentally as well. And so what I ended up doing, and this was for me, this was something that was really important. There came a time in my life I was traveling all over the world. I was going to Japan and Germany and Malaysia and Singapore and just traveling all over the world. And I'll never forget a situation that happened to me that changed my entire life. I went to Japan and I stayed there for about 2 weeks. I came back in town one day. My biggest customer in America called me. I jumped on the plane the next morning. I flew down to Fort Lauderdale. Took care of the situation. On my way back to my home, I was living in Colorado at the time, I had to stop through Atlanta. I had a very good friend, longtime friend in Atlanta, and I had a really long layover. I called her up and I said, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you meet me at the airport, for dinner? She says, okay. She comes to the airport. I'm telling her all about my travels, and I'm here and I'm there and I'm doing this. And she said this to me. She goes, wow, that sounds really wonderful. You're jet setting, you're being picked up by limos, you're staying in penthouses. She says, but you're an absentee father. I said, what? No, I live at home. She goes, oh, no. You're an absentee father. You think it's cool to send your children an email from Malaysia. Your children would rather have you there.
Yeah.
I went home. I flew back home and it really bothered me. And I thought about it. I went to my daughter's room. My daughter was 4 years old. I went to my daughter's room and I said to her, hey, honey, tell me about what's going on in school. Tell me about your friends. She says, oh, I don't have any friends. I said, what do you mean you don't have any friends? She goes, the kids at my daycare won't play with me. Why won't they play with you? Well, because I'm Black. And their parents tell them not to play with Black kids.
Wow.
I went to my son's room, started having a conversation with him, found out he's getting beat up every day because he was the only African American in an elementary school of 500 kids. And he's getting beat up every day. I was crushed. I had no idea. Why? Because while I was living at home and while I was there paying all the bills, I was an absentee father. What I did at that point is I made up in my mind that would never happen to me again. I left that job. I moved back to New Jersey to be closer to my family because I wanted my children to have a relationship with my family. And I took a job. I had just been a vice president of global sales and marketing for a healthcare company. I took a job for Bed Bath & Beyond stocking shelves. But every single day I was at my son's football practice. I was at my daughter's cheerleading practice. And I made a commitment at that point in my career. I would never take on another job that would take me out of town. And from then on, I would only travel when I could either leave early in the morning and I'm home by the time they go to bed, or I leave after they get up and I'm back by the end of the night. And I did that for the next 15 years of my career. And I sacrificed my career. I could have probably done a lot of different things, moved or done whatever, but I needed to be there, and my children, I believe, are better for it. I'm better for it. So that's something that's important to me. When you have children, you have to make choices. You have to make, I don't want to call them sacrifices because they're not sacrifices because these are your children.
Right.
You just have to make choices. So I'll shut up now, but yeah.
Oh,
but
that's so good.
That's it, man.
I understand. When I first started doing these, I was doing them at 7:00. And I was getting off work at like 5:30 at the time. I work in property management. I was getting off work because during the seasons, during the summertime, wintertime, with the company I was working for, we closed at 5:30. When summertime hit, we closed at 6. So when I started doing these, we were 5:30. So I get home, I had time with him, hour, 45 minutes with him, and he had a time. But then when the time shifted, and my first one, I got off at 6. My first one that was at 7:00. I came home and my wife told me that he was hurt because he didn't get time with me before I started.
Yeah.
That point on, I shifted the time of these to 8:00.
There you go.
So when I come home, he gets time with me. I get Saturdays are his days.
There you go.
Unless I got to work on Saturday, which I probably have to work on weekend, like maybe once a month. If I'm not working, Saturdays are his days.
There you go.
If I have something like maybe I meet with someone that I'm helping with business, something like that, I'll say, buddy, Daddy's got a call at like 2:00 for like an hour. And he'll remind me, Daddy, can you play with me before your call? Can you play with me after your call because I see how much my time
Means to him.
means to him.
Yeah.
So I made a point where, cats would call me to go do something or go out lunch. I can't do it Saturday. I can't go.
Yeah.
I can't go. Saturdays are his day. If I go, my son is coming with me.
There you go.
My son
Good
is
for
going to
you.
be with me,
Good for you.
and he's going to be sitting with me. And then that gives my wife a break too, because she works from home. She's with them all week, but they want that time. Like I said, we got to make choices to give our children that time, no matter how much money, how
That's
much
right.
less money we're going to make, because your children, because when that job lets you go, your children are going to be there.
That's right.
That's right. When that job lets you go, see, and my day, Saturdays are her day too. See,
there you go.
But yeah, so that was good, man. So what's an important piece of advice you've given to your children?
What's really interesting is, again, I'm going to refer to my book again. I apologize, but
you're good. Promote your book, man. Promote it.
The book that I wrote recently, The Love of a Father, Faith Principles of the Power of a Father's Love. I talk about the fact that when my children got ready to go to college or got ready to leave home, I did something where I wrote something called Pearls of Wisdom from a Father. And then I just listed a number of pieces of advice to my sons and to my daughter. These are pieces of advice from your father, pieces of wisdom. I'd like to think they are to my children, for them to remember me, for them when they get to where they're going, for them to remember. And I found those pearls of wisdom that my son let me know one day. He was away in school, and he says, "Hey, I want to show you something." And he turns the phone around, and there the pearls of wisdom are posted above his headboard on his wall. My daughter, about 3 months ago, called me, and we were talking, and she said, "Oh, I want to show you this." And over her headboard, she had taken a sticky note and written out all the different pearls of wisdom, each one on a different sticky note, and made them in the shape of a heart. I encourage all the fathers out there, specifically, find your pieces of advice for your children and create pearls of wisdom for every season in their life. No matter how young they are, no matter how old they are, create a list of your pearls of wisdom. As your children graduate up into elementary school, up into junior high, up into high school, update your pearls of wisdom. There are things that are exclusive to all of us from our experiences that we know, you know what, I need to tell my son, don't do this. I need to tell my daughter, don't do that. So take those pearls of wisdom, and I guarantee you, if you will write down your pearls of wisdom and you will give them to your children in every season of their life, you will see your children will cherish those. They will remember them. They will keep them close. And that is something that I did. For my children, I can't give you just one, but the one thing that I will say, one of the pearls of wisdom that I give to my children is I tell them, lie to anybody else in your life before you ever lie to yourself. No matter what you do in life, don't ever lie to you, because you are the most important person that you are going to deal with. So don't ever lie to yourself. If you know that something is going on, if you know that there's an addiction there, if you know that there's a problem there, if you know that someone shouldn't talk to you that way, if you know that you should go on differently, be true to you. Don't ever lie to yourself.
Oh man, that's awesome. I like that. The pearls of wisdom. I may have to get those from you, but I do the same thing with Caleb. I tell him it's confession time, and I tell him, he says, I tell him, you're great, you're a champion, you can do anything. Jesus loves you, you're Holloway. Your name means something. You're gonna do great things, you're gonna impact the world. He can recite those now. He can recite them. Every day, it's not a day to go by that I leave the house and we don't say that. When I drop off at school before he gets out of the car, right? Because confession time, buddy. And we say him because I want to know that you are great. And I tell him all the time, because it's something that wasn't taught to me coming up, is that your name means something. That the next thing that people say, and this is something that Bishop Moore told me coming up. He says, son, well, the next thing people say about you after they say your name means everything. And that's something I learned because, and I tell my son, your name means something. You're Holloway.
Mm-hmm.
Your name is great. What people say about you after they say your name
Yes.
is what they think about you.
Yes.
It's how they see you.
Yes.
And I had it coming up, and I learned that after, really as I got older, but right before I got married, that sunk into me because I can be honest. Before that, if people would say I was lazy, people would say I wasn't gonna be anything. People would say, certain things about me, but I changed that. I said, I gotta change the narrative. I gotta change the narrative, how people see me when they say my name. You can't say those things now.
Right.
When you say Nate Holloway.
There you go. There you go.
When my wife and I met, and her friends started asking around about me. Her friends started Googling me. And so if I hadn't done that, then what you think she would have heard about me?
There you go.
Asked about me.
Right.
So, and I teach that to my son, and that's important that we teach our kids that. We got to give our kids some pearls of wisdom for life, some guiding principles to go by.
Absolutely.
It's not just enough to just give them advice and tell them every day. We got to give them some pearls of wisdom that they some guiding principles.
Exactly.
They go by. I like that. So before we go, I like to give you guys a moment that at the end of the show to speak to dads out there.
Mm-hmm.
So just give a piece of advice to dads out there. However God leads you, if you want to say, just give a piece of advice to dads out there. Just listening and watching.
The Lord led me to write my most recent book, The Love of a Father, The Power of a Father's Love, Faith Principles of the Power of a Father's Love. And the reason he did is because God impressed upon me that it's time for men to step out of the shadows of the negativity that has been attached to being a father. It's time for us to embrace our real place. We are not in competition with the mothers of the world. The mothers love how they love. We love deeply also, just differently. And it's time for men to step up and be real fathers. It's time for us, just like you said, to change the narrative of who we are, to change the story that people think when they think of fathers and they think of deadbeat dads. No, that is not who we are. And we are no longer, even if you're no longer with the child's mother, you're not a deadbeat dad. Even if you have not done everything right, you're not a deadbeat dad. No matter what you do in your life, always keep your children at the center of it because they are the legacy that God has entrusted to you. So it's time for men to step forward and embrace being a father and what that means, and the fact that though we love differently, it's still love and it still is deep. So I encourage all men out there, be that dad that either you had or you wish you did. But whatever you do, don't ever stop being a dad.
Man, that was awesome. And man, Ken, again, man, I thank you for being on tonight. We're gonna do this again where we're talking about your books and we're talking about those pearls of wisdom. I do want to come and have you on. We're gonna talk about those pearls of wisdom in detail.
Absolutely.
So tell everybody, how can they find you? Where can they get your books?
Absolutely. So you can get my books on Amazon. I have 3 books that are in the marketplace right now. All of them are on Amazon. But if you go to Amazon and put Love of a Father, Ken Gordon, it will pop right up. Along with Divorce But Still Dad, that is also out there. If you're a father that has been through divorce or going through divorce, and you're in that season of hurting and of pain, get this book. It will bless you. I wrote the book because I couldn't find any books out there to help me understand how to honor God through that time of my life. But get it. It will bless you. Amazon. You can find this at Barnes and Noble. You can also find Love of a Father on Audible. It's an audio book as well. If you don't want to read it, you can also find it on Amazon or on Audible as well. So Amazon's the spot for everything. We all know that nowadays, right? You can find my books there, but Barnes & Noble, Apple iTunes Store as well.
Hey, but guys, thank you for watching. But before we go, I want to do something that I feel led to do. I want to pray for anybody out there right now, any dads, anybody who does not know Jesus as your Lord and Savior. I want to give you an opportunity tonight to receive him, because when you do that, He will give you the power and the wisdom to be the father, the mother, the husband, the wife that you're called to be. So if you're out there and you want to receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, just put your hand out toward the screen right now. Repeat these words after me. Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you.
Yes, Lord.
I ask you to forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart, live in me, and help me to live with you. Walk through me and walk with me. In Jesus' name, amen. If you repeat those words, you have been saved. Just reach out to us at hello@kingdomrelationships.org. I want to pray with you. I want to reach out to you, help you get some materials. If you don't have a church home, we can research, help you find a church home. But we want to walk with you and help you walk out this life and to be a father. That's what we're here for. And guys, we thank you. Guys, again, I want to thank you for watching. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I want you to go to iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, hit subscribe, leave us a review, and share this video or share the podcast with others who you think and feel needs to hear it, because it will bless them. I guarantee. All right. You guys for being on. Be blessed.
All right. Blessings.